This episode of The Shift is sponsored by Indeed. Anyone who's ever had to hire people knows one thing. Finding good candidates fast is easier said than done. If only I'd known that when it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other job sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs help you stand out and hire fast by ensuring your post is at the top of the page for your relevant candidates. It makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications. When I was looking to hire someone, finding people with the right skills was slow and overwhelming. Oh, I wish I had known about Indeed. Plus, there are no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. But how fast is Indeed really? Well, in the minute we've been talking, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of The Shift will get £100 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at indeed.com/theshift. Just go to indeed.com/theshift right now and please support us by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/theshift. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. Hello and welcome to The Shift, the podcast that aims to tell the no-holds-barred truth about being a woman post-40. Created and hosted by me, writer and broadcaster Sam Baker. Now, crime novels might not be the first thing that spring to mind when you hear the name Steph McGovern. Steph is an award-winning broadcaster who is currently co-host of the Rest is Money podcast with Robert Peston. At the start of her career in journalism, because before that she was an engineer, of course, Steph worked for BBC News behind the scenes, despite having been told that people like you don't work for the BBC. Then she moved in front of the cameras as the business reporter on BBC Breakfast. She went on to present her own show, Steph's Packed Lunch, and can often be seen on Have I Got News for You, amongst many other places. But apart from getting us more clued up about money, Steph has another passion. She is an obsessive crime reader who has now written one of her own, Deadline, which takes us behind the scenes of a broadcaster thrown into a hostage situation live on air, while a scandal waits to subsume Westminster. Steph joined me for a full-on, free-range chat. We talked money, motivation, fame, power of being underestimated, and what she learned from interviewing Donald Trump.
So with him, when he walked in, he just did this ridiculous, little performance where he, stopped dead and looked at me and just was like, wow, you're so beautiful. And did this whole thing where he was like, you're so beautiful, I'm going to have to leave the room to make myself look better because if we do this interview now, everyone will be staring at you and not listening to me.
Plus, the menopause learning curve, flooding the breakfast telly sofa live on air, being a two-mum family, and why you should never, ever let them make you stay in your lane. So you're at home now, yeah?
Yeah.
Did you ever leave Tyneside? Well, you grew up on Teesside, didn't you? But did you leave and go back, or?
Well, I kind of went a bit further north for a bit because I was working for Black & Decker in Spenny, where we're in Durham. And then moved to London when I was 19. And then I stayed in London till I was about 28, 29. And then moved to Manchester when the BBC moved to Manchester. And then I was there for a good few years. And then when I was pregnant with my daughter, we moved to Harrogate. And that's where I lived for a bit. Yeah. And then from there here. So, but yes, I've slowly kind of crisscrossed back to the north.
Done a sort of a full circle.
Yeah.
I've got to ask you about Black & Decker in a minute, because that's just, when I was reading that earlier, it boggled my mind.
Yeah.
But before we do that, tell me a little bit about growing up, about little Steph.
So little Steph grew up in, it's funny you call me little Steph because actually there were 3 Stephs and one of them was little Steph. I was big Steph. But there was, little Steph. So, I mean, I grew up in Middlesbrough. I'm an only child. Middlesbrough's obviously heavy industry, gets slagged off a lot in the media. I was never aware of that growing up, really. It's only in kind of, as I've got older, I've known the deprivation and stuff of that a lot of, the kids who I was at school with and things grew up in. But it was normal. It was like a very kind of fun childhood. Given I was an only child, I think you go one of two ways. You're either introvert or extrovert. And I was definitely someone who wanted to be, out there. My mum always talks about when we'd go on coach trips for our holidays, I'd like make friends with everyone on the coach. And, I'd always try and talk to people and find out about people. I was nosy, making people I like people liking me. I think it's just that really tragic, only child thing of I just want everyone to like me. And that
it was friend.
Yeah. So it was that. And it was like that at school. It was just me wanting to be the school swot so the teachers would like me, but equally not wanting to look like that in front of all the kids so that the kids would like me. So I was just, I was just one of those, but not in any way that, I had a great childhood, I did dancing as well. So I was an Irish dancer, and I just, I had a really fun upbringing. And, don't get me wrong, we didn't have loads of money. So it wasn't, but that was irrelevant to me. I was interested in money though. And I think a lot of that plays into what I do as a job now. But yeah, it was a really nice kind of life. And my dad's an artist. So I was also a bit quirky in that my house growing up was full of my dad's random paintings and sculptures. He was a teacher at the local school, and some of the kids would be scared to come around our house because we'd have these sculptures that would be, and some of it's quite dark as art. So it'd be like some kind of sculpture of a man with half a face missing or something. And the kids would be like, oh, your dad's dead weird. And so there was that element to it as well. And again, I think all of this was just, to me, dead normal.
So you kind of grew up, your dad was an artist, so he wasn't completely, normal, but not completely normal. And your mum's a radiographer, is that right?
Yeah. So she worked at the local hospital. I think everyone's parents either worked at ICI or British Steel or the hospital or were teachers or whatever. So it was that kind of dynamic of everyone had a parent who worked in the hospital, local hospital as well. And so my mum, she worked as a radiographer at the hospital for over 40 years. So yeah, my dad was a bit unusual, is a bit unusual because of his art. It's funny though, because people kind of go, oh, you must be middle class if your dad was an artist. And it's we didn't have any money from his art.
Yeah.
He
wasn't Damien Hirst.
Yeah. And you can be amazingly creative and not be loaded or whatever. So it was interesting because I've had that thrown at me actually. Someone said to me once, it was probably a troll, how can you possibly say you know what it's like to grow up in a deprived area, but your dad's an artist? And you're like, does that mean poor people are not allowed to be artists?
Well, it kind of does, doesn't it? I think that's the thing, isn't there's this idea, and it's getting worse because it all pays so badly, but that creativity is the preserve of people with money.
Yeah, and I get that, because to do it as a career, quite often you do need to be rich or, have some type of financial support somehow to be able to do it. And that is, and it's the same with writing, isn't it? It's the same with so many, and even me going into journalism, to be honest, it wasn't something I thought I could do. I didn't even know what a journalist was, to be honest, when I was a kid. But so, yeah, and I didn't know anyone who did stuff like that. And so it's only in kind of later in life you go, oh yeah, these jobs exist and actually I could do it. Why not?
But did you have that thing? Because I had that. I didn't really know that journalism was a job, but then I loved smash hits.
Yeah.
And I remember I went to careers teaching, he's like, what do you want to do? And I don't know what possessed me. I was like, I want to work on smash hits.
Yeah.
And he just looked at me like I was something he'd trodden in and was like, girls like you don't do jobs like that.
That is just... People like that are just, they shouldn't be allowed to speak. They shouldn't be allowed to talk to kids. Yeah, they shouldn't be allowed to ever talk to kids. Because that's my big mantra and is that beef of just people thinking they can't do something. And okay, if you're not a good singer, you might not be able to win X Factor, but you can be the person who produces it. You can be the person who decides who goes on the show. You could be the person who does the hair and makeup. You could be the person who films it. You could be you're like, there's a million different other jobs around what you might love. And we instantly too often say to kids and kind of silo them and divide them and go, oh no, you're smart, so you'll want to do this, or you're not smart, so you'll want to. And it's like, no. Let's not silo people. Let's just let everyone have a go at different things, learn in different ways, and then they'll feel more motivated and empowered and inspired to do stuff. So yeah, that it really because I had a similar thing like you've said about your teaching about smash hits. You can't work there. Applied for work experience at the BBC at the local BBC Cleveland, as it then was, and they were like, "Oh, we don't really have people like you working for the BBC."
Was that like, your background? What does that even mean? Voice? What was it? What does it mean?
I don't know. Because at that age, when it was said to me, I just was like, "Oh, right, okay," which is ironic given how
But you did end up working for the BBC.
Yeah, and I never worked in the kind of regional office anyway. I was straight into the national one, so more fool them. But
yeah, it's so. I mean, I definitely felt like it was. I mean, I'm older than you, but it definitely felt like there was a certain sort of person who could do that sort of job, and it wasn't me.
Yeah, and I think that's what's kind of kept everyone in their lane for a long time, hasn't it? Is that, and it feels, and that's what's really good about, I guess, one of the good sides of social media and things now is actually people can come out of their lane and go and do whatever they want because they can just create platforms themselves for what they want to talk about and stuff. And I think for me as well, the school I went to played a really pivotal role in my view of the world of work. And that was because the school was sponsored by industry. So it was a weird like Tory initiative that was set up to try and help areas, with tough areas, try and meet the needs of like the local economy and things and just business more generally. And so our school was sponsored by, this will make you laugh, British American Tobacco. Exactly. So, yeah.
Oh my God. That's bottling, isn't it?
I know. So a cigarette company was our school sponsor. And I mean, I didn't know what the acronym stood for at the time, to be honest. But there's like these photos of me as a kid shaking hands with like the chairman of BAT at school.
Oh my God.
But what they did is they invested a lot in us having like really good facilities. So we were a real melting pot of kids who were from really tough homes, whose parents were criminals or, involved in gang crime or all of this crazy stuff. And we were just this melting pot of kids, but we were given like really good, we had like a laptop in our first year of our secondary school. We had like school trips, which were fully funded. Most of us a lot of the kids had never been on a coach before. And so we were on coach trips and all the things like that. We were taken out of the area. We were taken to local businesses. So we had that really tangible sense of the world of work. So I knew when I was a teenager, like what a supply chain was. And there's loads of people who wouldn't even know that now.
No,
and
I was gonna say.
So I really understood from a young age, like, right, I want to work in business. I want to make money. I want to do, I want to climb to the top of that business, or I want to be the boss of this or whatever. And I just think we were given, it was really inspiring. A lot of the people I grew up with in that cohort have gone on to do really well for themselves. One of my mates is a top football presenter in the States. She'd come from like quite a, tough home. Another lad whose dad was a local hitman. He's now out in Singapore and is doing amazingly well in industry there. And I could list a load of people who've gone on to do well. And I think it was because a lot of them didn't have the structure in their lives to be able to pass exams, but we were taught a lot about transferable skills and about how to make money legitimately and like, and just hone the skills in the right way. And that made a huge difference to me. So even when people were saying to me, you can't do something, because we had that a lot with the school where other schools wouldn't compete against us in sports and stuff because they thought we were different. And, a lot of the other school head teachers were annoyed that we were getting this money from industry, so they wouldn't play us in sports. So the only teams that would play us would be like private school ones. And our teachers were really good at going, the only difference between them and you is their mum and dads have got money. That's the only difference. So go out there and beat them. And that really stuck in my head. Then when, as people in my career have gone, you can't do that, I've gone, why? What's the difference between me and you? You've got rich parents. If that's it, then, and I didn't know it at the time. I really didn't. It's only as I've grown up and, gone into different careers where often some element of me has meant me, I've been in the minority. So starting off in engineering and being a woman, or going into the media and having an accent, so all these things, it's like, that's that grounding from the teachers saying that to us has really stuck in my head and kind of stood the test of time in terms of how well I've done.
Yeah, tell me about the engineering, because you've got an engineering scholarship. Yeah, it's just like looking kind of back through. It's always like, and you can never trust Wikipedia anyway, but looking at Wikipedia, it does look like someone's made it all up.
Yeah, it does. It does. I know it does. I can totally appreciate that. Because of the school I went to, and we were always like entering different schemes, mainly because me and the lads and that were up for trying to make money. And there was loads of money thrown into engineering stuff when we were teenagers, especially if you were a woman. And I loved it. I love science. I really love like how things work and stuff like that. So it all fitted well. I was always entering different engineering competitions. And then when I'd got like a scholarship to help pay for my A-levels and things like that in science and engineering. And then when it came to like finishing my A-levels, I couldn't afford to go to uni straight away. And plus I thought, hang on, I should be trying to get someone else to pay for it anyway. If everyone wants us to be engineers, then. And so I was just a bit kind of, through the school I went to and everyone that I mixed with, we were just quite savvy about money, which I know some people will hate because they'll be like, oh God, you shouldn't just be focusing on how you make money. But when you come from a place that doesn't have any, that's what you are bothered about. Yeah, so we were kind of encouraged into all of this stuff. And then I was like, right, I'm going to go and work in industry for a bit to try and, see if I can get someone to pay my degree or, and just get that on the job experience and see how much I like it. And so, yeah, I joined Black & Decker on a kind of apprenticeship scheme, and it was brilliant. I loved it because it was a factory floor. And then all the, the backroom stuff that happened as well, like product design. And at the time looking at developing a vacuum cleaner, and I worked a bit on that. And there was just this, it was really fun. And it was just this great atmosphere of, yeah, okay, some people didn't necessarily love their jobs on the factory floor, but then there were also lots that did. And so that camaraderie, that sarcasm that runs rife in like particularly Northern humour or whatever, I just really loved it. And then when I was there, I was given this like one of those projects, which it didn't matter if it didn't work or not. And it was to try and get a company that supplied plastic fans to us to see if they could make them faster, but in the same quality. And it was all about lean production. And I got trained in this area. It's called Six Sigma, but it's basically about manufacturing to in the most efficient way possible. It worked, this project I did with this little company. And so it then won me awards. So I won like Young Engineer for Britain when I was 19. And then that caught the attention of the media, and they were like, who's this Northern girl, who is working in engineering and saving this company a load of money. And I didn't do it on my own. This isn't the story of me coming in as some maverick who changed things. It was a total team effort. But as the gobby kid who liked talking and pleasing everyone, I was the one who did like the presentations about it and everything else. And I had this weird confidence. I wasn't as intimidated then as maybe I was a little bit in my career, kind of in the middle of it before I became a presenter. I think there was a bit of me that was like, yeah, well, why wouldn't I go and present this to all the people and tell them all about it? And I think, again, that came from the school and that just inner confidence that they built in us. So then I got asked to go on a show on Radio 4 to talk about being a woman in science and engineering and what that had been like. And I remember just turning up at Television Centre and being like, oh my God, I want to work here.
This is it.
It was, I'd never seen anything like it in my life. The revolving doors, that it was where I'd watch Live and Kicking, Children in Need, that beautiful building, Television Centre. I've actually got the architectural drawing of it up in the house now. Like I bought it a few years ago because it's just, to me, it's like a total mecca, I suppose. And so I went there and I just was like, I want to work here. And I basically stalked the people who I'd done the show with and just said, please, can I come back and do some work experience? And by that point, I was coming to London anyway to study. And so I got a little job answering the phones on Radio 4 on Moneybox.
So at that point, though, no one said, we don't employ people like you.
No, it was like my experience of going on the Radio 4 show. And then that team who were making the show, they were just so like brilliant, so supportive. Like one of them, she's a lady called Penny Haslam, who she's a broadcaster herself. And she just spent quite a bit of time with me, like just showing me how radio editing, how audio editing works and stuff. And I was just so keen to learn. And I was constantly saying, what else can I do? Is there anything else I can do when I'm here? I was just so excited by being there that I just tried to, not on purpose, I don't think, but I just made myself like useful while I was there. The thing I always say to people is the key to success in life is just work hard and be nice to people. And that's basically what I did. I was just like, I really love to work here. What do I need to do?
But there's something else, isn't there? Because there's, as well as work hard and be nice to people, there's still something else that got you.
Yeah.
That made you feel like, whether it's the school or whether it's your family or whether it's just your personality, that's made you feel like you could.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. I think I felt as those doors opened for me, there was nothing telling me that I didn't deserve to walk through them. So I think you're right there. And I don't know where, I still think that came from school. And probably my parents. I mean, my parents have never been pushy ever. My dad is still shocked when I ring and tell him something I've done. Like I remember ringing and telling him my GCSE results and he was like, wow, that is mad. Or like if I ring and say, oh, I've just done an interview with Sam Beck, blah, blah, blah. I'd be like, wow, wow. What were you talking about? He's always like so gorgeous with it. Like there's never been, all right, okay, but you could do better. Or there's always just a genuine excitement in what I do. And there's never been any pressure for me to do any more than I have. I felt like I've been self-motivated. I've not been like, oh, I better do this because my parents will be whatever. I think they just have always been enthusiastic and about everything I've done. And I think they find it mad, like my life. They're like, wow, is that really? Oh,
yeah,
right,
it's
okay.
Like so other, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And when people, they're in a rambling club, my mum and dad, when people say to them, oh, you're Steph, blah, blah, blah. And they'll go, oh, yeah. Well, they sometimes they can't even keep up with what I've done. Oh, was she? She was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Was she? All right. Yeah. I didn't know. It's just...
This episode of The Shift is sponsored by Shopify. When I think back to starting The Shift, I can hardly believe I pulled it off. I mean, I knew nothing and I had to figure it all out on my own. Scripts, scheduling, branding. When you're starting something new, it can seem like every time you tick something off your to-do list, 2 more things magically appear in their place. So finding a tool that simplifies the whole process can be a real game changer. For millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, from household names like Heinz to Allbirds and Skims. Get started with your own design studio. With hundreds of ready-to-use templates, Shopify will help you build an online store to match your brand style. Accelerate your content creation. Shopify is packed with helpful tools to write product descriptions, headlines, and enhance product photography. Get the word out like you actually have a marketing team to create email and social media campaigns wherever your customers are scrolling. And best yet, Shopify is your commerce expert with world-class expertise in everything from inventory to international shipping to processing returns, you name it. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your £1 a month trial at shopify.co.uk/shift. Go to shopify.co.uk/shift. when you got to the BBC, did you feel like you belonged, or did you kind of just look around and think, who are all these people with these posh voices who went to Oxford?
Yeah, but right. So there's this interesting thing where, again, I didn't know that I wasn't, normal's the wrong word. I don't know how to describe it. Didn't realize that I was different to the people there, or that I was aware that we had different voices, but it took months before I realized how different our lives were, because I had nothing to compare it with, or, you don't instantly start talking about, what your parents did or what school you went to or whatever like that. So, it takes a bit of time. And I tell you the key things that made me realize that I was different, but that played to my advantage when we were talking about John Lewis's results coming out. So obviously, big department store, and the results, their financial results were due out. And somebody said, oh, they're kind of like a barometer, bellwether of the high street. And I was like, are you joking? John Lewis, it's posh as that. You don't even have one in Middlesbrough. And you could see them like, how does that tell you what's going on in the retail world? That's like a tiny proportion of who's shopping where. And I just thought to myself, wow, that's mad that they didn't know that. So I just started to see where, and don't get me wrong, there was times when it was intimidating, when I'd be like, oh, I don't know if I dare say, what. For example, a good example is, do you remember the Fair Pack hamper scandal? So this was the company where people would put money away, and at Christmas, they'd get a hamper, which was to the value of what money they'd put away. So I remember at Radio 4 at the time mentioning this and saying, this is a massive deal, this going bust, because I know people who put money into it and they're absolutely devastated. And they were saying, and I felt intimidated saying it, because at the time they were saying, why would people put money into something where they're not making interest on it, or they're not, getting more than what they've put in? I was like, well, that's just how they save. And it's like your auntie running it, who works for the company. And this is like a community thing as well. And it was a bit intimidating saying that, because I was thinking, are you thinking we're all stupid? But then I realised, this is massive though, and you don't realise that. And we actually ended up, I remember we did it, a various coverage of it at the time on the radio, and we won loads of awards for it because nobody else was talking about it. And I'm not saying that was all down to me, but it was just, I realised I brought in a different perspective, and that was a strength, not a weakness. And again, I had the confidence of youth on my side to think, well, that's mad that they don't know that. And, and it was only years later, I really realised how different I was when one of my bosses said, Steph, he didn't say because he's not Northern, but he said, I remember when you started, and I said to the team, we've got this new girl starting and she's really unusual. She's Northern. And we're going to have to think about how she can fit in. Maybe we could take her to the theatre because she won't have been there before. Or, she's going to be friendly, but don't cross her. She'll be great in a fight. But it wasn't...
No cliches here. No.
I know. But it wasn't malice. So it wasn't him being mean. It was just simply ignorance, of life outside the media and political bubble that they'd grown up in. And I realised that was my superpower, was being normal, and actually being like most of the people who watched the shows we made were actually, for one, I mean, I hate the word normal, but you know what I mean? Just but yeah, don't get me wrong, there was times when it was definitely intimidating, particularly political, when it comes to politics and stuff, going to the Houses of Parliament for the first time, or Downing Street or whatever. You're like, oh, this is wild for someone like me. As the years go on, you just realise that actually for most people, it's about their contacts more than anything else. And it's just good. And they only have them because they went to school with them. And actually, I'd like to think things have changed a bit on that front. And so, yeah, the politics and media are starting to a little bit more reflect what the real world looks like.
I hope so. A little bit.
Well, I know. I say
there's a way to go, isn't there?
I know there is a really long way to go. I know. And that's a depressing thing, but I do feel like it's a bit better than it was.
Yeah, the representation's a little bit better. Little bit.
Yeah, but there's still the barriers. Yeah. There's still the barriers there. I know.
Yeah.
And that's without wanting to sound like this is where I plug my book, but that is part of the reason why the book I've written is a lot of my experiences of what I've seen on that power divide and that wealth divide, and how, people try and keep you in your lane,
It's so interesting listening to you talking, because I was thinking that there's so much, or obviously all the TV stuff and the behind the scenes stuff on the TV was obviously came from your, your own experience of working on BBC Breakfast. But when you were talking, I was thinking, this is the kids who make up the other strand of the novel, which we can't talk about too much because we don't want to spoil it. But could you have written those kids if you hadn't had your upbringing?
I doubt they are like the kids I grew up with, the kids in the book. So they are people I still see in towns and cities and places where there's massive inequality. And so the brilliant actress who's doing the audiobook, Faye Marseille, grew up in the same place as me. And obviously I've picked her to do it because she's a brilliant actress, but she also has my voice, but she has my upbringing. And she was saying it really hit her because they were the kids she recognised as well. So yeah, we're trying not to give the plot away, but essentially the part of the story is about growing up in a place that's really struggling and kind of the way you get used and manipulated by the media and by politicians, how it's, you're underestimated. And I feel like that. I feel like throughout my career, people have underestimated me, definitely. And again, that's been useful because I love it. I absolutely love it when a bloke underestimates me. It's my favourite thing when a business, normally like a CEO of a company who underestimates me. It's like, yes, come on. You
must have got that though a fair bit in the beginning.
I've had it loads.
Working in business and money and talk to like the little girly.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I've been asked for the cups of teas before when people haven't realised I'm doing the interview and all sorts. And there was once, I won't tell you exactly who it is, but there was a retail CEO of a famous retailer who totally was. So what happens, without going into too much financial detail, whenever you get results from a company, you get different versions of their profits based on before or after tax, based on whether something exceptional has happened in that financial year and all this. And they obviously, PR spin, wanted to go with a particular figure. And I was quoting the other figure. And rather than accepting I knew what I was talking about, he was like, you don't know what you're talking about. This is the figure. And he kept calling me Stephanie as well. When on air, I'm known as Steph. So I know it's a trivial thing, but it was like a patronising
thing.
No,
it's a patronising power thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And I ended up, but I really fought hard and I remember I was shaking because I was literally live on telly doing this interview. And he was really like trying to undermine me, but I knew I was right. And I was like, don't lose your bottle, keep going. And then that person after the interview went mad and they were like, we're never doing that show again. And for a long time, that retailer didn't do the show. And I remember my boss, she was a brilliant, and I say she because she tragically died of breast cancer while I was working with her. It was horrendous, but she was just really gave me the confidence. She was like, if you are right in what you've said, and I trust that you're right, let's hold our nerve. And if he won't come on the show again and be interviewed by you, he's not coming on the show again. Because he was like, I won't do it unless someone else interviews me because she doesn't know what she's talking about. And anyway, fast forward, the company wasn't doing particularly well a few years later. He got the boot. And then the chairman of the company rang us at breakfast and said, we're really sorry, we haven't done your show for a long time. Can we come back on?
You were like, yes.
Yes, but it really got me that because for ages I kept thinking, what's going to happen here? It makes me look daft that this big boss won't do an interview with me. And it, and was obviously saying stuff to other retail bosses like, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about. And I did.
When I was editing magazines and there was always, even though it was quite a female dominated environment, there was a real, in fact, it was before I was editing them, right the way up, there's a real whisper network, in the industry, in all industries. Did you find that? Because I think you actually have I think in the book you mention it as well. Did you find that when you were growing up, there was like, oh, don't get in the lift with, not growing up, working up?
Oh, yeah. I still hear that about things. Like when I was doing my show, if there was, when I was doing, a show on Channel 4, this daily show that I did called Packed Lunch, I had this rule about behaviour. And I was like, if ever anyone, even like, and maybe this was wrong, even rumors, if there were enough rumors about them, I don't want them to be on the show. It's not worth it. And then it just lets them get away with things. And you know, totally. So there were genuinely some people that I would not have on the show because I knew about their reputation. And I was like, I'm not putting my staff through it. I don't care how famous they are or whatever. Like, it's just not fair. And then you basically allow it if you know about it. And then you let them then have the publicity off your show. So and it still goes on. Like, there's still people, I think, who are, for whatever reason, protected. And it's really, but I don't think that's just in the media. I think that's in lots of sectors. We haven't quite got on top of that. And again, like you say, part of that is a little element in the book as well, is just that what people get away with and what protection they have because of their status or their wealth or whatever it is. They're something that protects them, and it's just not fair.
No, I mean, it definitely does. It feels like it is. Again, it's changing a bit, although it was changing, but now obviously the world has gone backwards slightly. You interviewed Donald Trump, haven't you?
Yes, I have. It's really interesting because it's become like my anecdote of the century is me and meeting
It's
Trump.
what comes up when you just literally have to put stare into Google and it comes
and you get
up.
Trump. Yeah, I know. And but it actually taught me a lot about how he was with me, taught me a lot about how he thinks in terms of his worldview. And I think, and I'll explain what happened, but what I've got from this is his binary view of the world. So he's put us all into kind of homogenous lumps, I think. So when I interviewed him, it was before he was president, and it was when, he was kicking off about the wind farms in Scotland near his golf club. So he wanted to be on the media to kick off about that. And obviously I had a million other things that I wanted to ask him. And you'll know this from the job you've done, Sam. Like you have this like power play where you're allowed to ask, you're right. A bit like me doing book publicity. You kind of, can she come on and talk about a book? Yes, she can, but we also want to talk about all these other things. So that was the same with Trump. It was like we agreed 1 or 2 questions on the wind farms. Often with these people like that, they have like an entourage, their advisors, their PRs or whoever, and they've got this entourage, and he had a stylist with him.
And they did what precisely?
Yeah. But this one advisor woman said to me, when Mr. Trump walks into the room, that's when your 10 minutes start. So, that's your time. And then as soon as that's over, interview done. And you get that a lot with politicians, before the politician walks in, it's normally their special advisor who tells you what you can and can't do. And they'd say things like, don't ask him about his ex-wife, don't ask him about his hair. And you're thinking, aren't you, as a journalist, last question, what does your ex-wife think about your hair?
So at the end, in case you get thrown out.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where the juicy stuff is, whatever they say they don't want to talk about. So with him, when he walked in, he just did this ridiculous, like, little performance where he, like, stopped dead and looked at me and just was like, wow, you're so beautiful. And like did this whole thing where it's like, you're so beautiful, I'm going to have to leave the room to make myself look better, because if we do this interview now, everyone will be staring at you and not listening to me. That, I mean, yeah, I can tell from your reaction, Tam, you know exactly what I'm talking about. He did not think that about me. He just thought, woman, all she cares about is what she looks like. Or that's the thing she cares about the most. Therefore, I'll disarm her by telling her she looks beautiful. And I'll be really like, I won't just say, oh, you look good. I'll do a whole big thing where she really knows that I think she's beautiful. And then, so he did that with me. And then he took the exact opposite tact with my producer. That person is a lad called Sean. Now, Sean, he's now a brilliant business journalist on the BBC. You might have heard him on like Radio 4 Today programme, Sean Farrington. Anyway, his approach from Trump was, Trump went over to him and obviously, and I don't think Trump is as thick as he looks sometimes. Like he clearly worked out that he needed to impress me and Sean. So his tack with me is tell me I'm gorgeous. His approach with Sean is to like basically start a fight with him, but in a kind of, hey, Sean, well, I slap you on the back. I'm going to tell you, yeah, big man, like we're going to, if you make me look rubbish in this and you'll never work again, like blah, 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 blah. you know, and so here's this like really binary view of the population. You know, women care about what they look like. Men want to fight. That's how I'm going to deal with these situations. And that's what I think we're seeing play out now. It's just like this kind of bullying, fighting mentality. I'm going to fight China. I'm going to...
Yeah, at a global scale.
Yeah, I mean, he did. I have, to his credit, he did have gravitas when he walked into the room. And he did have an element of charisma in that sense of like, people were like, you would look at him and be like, you know, he's a big guy. He has what I've seen in like some brilliant world leaders of the past who would walk into a room and you think, wow, I understand why they are at the top of the game. But obviously not backed up with any real understanding of the world. Yeah, everything I'm watching play out now, it just doesn't surprise me because of how simplistic he is about the world and how binary he views things.
Yeah. You know, most women will be familiar with that kind of being patronized, but on the scale that you were dealing with, you know, like say CEOs of big corporations, political leaders, it's like, you know, there are, particularly in the business side of media, there are still not so many women, are there?
No, there aren't. There aren't. And that does like upset me because there are so many good women who would clearly make brilliant leaders as well. You know, people who are doing stuff in education or in the healthcare sector or wherever, there's loads of which are heavily female dominated who would be amazing in other industries. I was recently doing a big retail event actually where I met loads of amazing female bosses and I was like, how did I not know about all of you lot? So for example, one of the biggest retailers in the world is Walmart, you know, a big American retail giant, used to own Asda. The former CEO and president of this global organization is a lass from Middlesbrough. She's literally from my hometown. She's left now, she's retired, but she was from Middlesbrough. I was like, how do I not know about you? Because I want every kid in Middlesbrough to meet you and go, this is what you could be. And there's nothing stopping you from being that person. Yeah. And I think a couple of things is, one is women don't show off as much. There's a certain type of woman who does, you know, and I was talking to the CEO of Greggs about this, also an amazing woman, Roisin Curry. She is the woman who was Walmart, by the way, I should name check her, Judith McKenna, amazing woman. So the boss of CEO of Greggs, Roisin Curry, she's like working class Glasgow girl, done good. And again, I was like, why don't you do like loads of media stuff? And she was like, I just think about what's good for the business. And that's not about me. You know, it's about, and I'm like, I get it. You're doing your job really well and you're not showing off. So that's what you're doing. You're bossing it. You're quietly bossing it. And so there are some amazing female leaders out there, but it's like, they're just quietly getting on with it.
I remember when I was fundraising for a business and a kind of a thing that kept coming up was basically more bullshit. You know, I mean, somebody described it as they wanted more fairy dust. You know, like, you just want more bullshit. So it's not really about the capacity to do the job at all. It is like you say, it's about the showing off. Do you find yourself less tolerant of the showing off as you get older?
Oh, totally. I mean, you must be the same, Sam. And also I think the other funny thing is I have realised, and I know you've interviewed people like Naga Munteti, haven't you? And, you know, You've talked to women about all the things that they're going on with hormonally and everything else. And I think women have just quietly got on with things, dealing with raging hormones, dealing with I'm going through, I'm sure I'm perimenopause at the minute. So I'm going through horrendous periods. And you just got to get on with it, haven't you? Sorry, that's the wrong way to phrase it. We just get on with it and we do our jobs. And okay, we might at home like talk to our partners about it or whatever, but on the whole, we've just got on with it. And I've forgotten my point. That's perimenopause in action. I've literally just gone, what am I talking about again?
And Joe, don't look at me because I can't remember. Like losing your tolerance for bullshit.
Yes. Thank you very much. And it's that thing of you realize when you start to talk to women, and I'm so glad more of us are talking about it now. Thank God, because I genuinely thought I was going nuts recently with all of the symptoms and everything that come with it. And thank God we're talking about it, because you realize we're all going through the same stuff. And actually, just like that gives you a strength in a way. We're not all superheroes. Like when I was talking about this retail conference and chatting to all these women, we were all talking about what everyone had done for childcare as well. And you're like, and there was this brilliant thing said by, there was this amazing CEO from America, this woman, and she'd said, because we were talking about she was away from her kids. This event was in England. And I was like, how long, are you away from your son for, blah, blah, blah. And she was saying one of her colleagues had done this thing where every time they left their kid for a day, or at least they would send them a postcard. So say they were away for 5 days, this kid would get 5 postcards. And I said, oh, and then she went, no, then that child has evidence of how long you were away for when they were a kid. And I just thought that's such a human reaction. It just really spoke to me as someone saying to me, yeah, we're all going through stuff at home in our lives with hormones. And yet now, it's only now that we're talking about it. And then that massively helps you to go, oh, right, okay, yeah, not everyone is holding it together. Like sometimes people are really just holding it together and they're going through all these different things. And actually I've never talked to Naga about what she was going through with, her terrible periods. I didn't know any of that. Similarly, Louise Minchin on the sofa as well. She's now talked a lot about her menopause. And like none of us, we were women working together every single day at like 6 a.m. in the morning and getting there earlier than that and having to go through hair and makeup. I know, which sounds very glamorous, and I'm not complaining about that.
No, 6 a.m. No.
Yeah, and so none of us talked about it, and I just thought that's mad. And I think we would now. I think if you put us all back together, and I'm still really good friends with Louise and Naga and Sally and Carol and everyone, I think we would talk about it. And I was like, that's dead annoying. We didn't at the time, but people didn't. This was like 10 years ago or whatever.
What does every USAA member have in common? Family. We're one big family who supports the military community and their eligible families. And if you, your parent, or spouse served, you could join our family and save big on auto insurance. Visit USAA.com/join today to check your eligibility. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
I went through it 10 years ago, and I reckon it's like 5 years. The conversation has really, really shifted a lot. Definitely when I was in the office, when I was, shoving a tampon up my sleeve, it was like you couldn't admit you had a period.
I know.
Like the one of the characters in your book basically saying about, oh, it's menopause, women go mad. And I think there was that, wasn't there? There was that. Probably like if you grew up in the 80s and 90s, it was a bit like, oh, you don't really admit to being, you don't let people know about all those female things because it would be taken as a negative.
Yeah. And it's funny because my makeup artist, Patrick, a guy and a gay guy, so, doesn't have that much experience of dealing with women with periods and stuff. He got so attuned to my cycle though, because he was doing my makeup like nearly every day. He was like, I think you're due on next week, because I can tell from your skin, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, why am I being whatever? And he's like, no, actually, your skin's a bit dry or whatever. It was interesting because I kind of opened up to him about it while I was doing the show, just a bit like, oh God, I'm really struggling with period pains today or whatever. And actually it made a huge difference. And also one funny thing it was funny, not funny, but that kind of dark humor thing is I had this terrible flooding happen one day. And I literally I couldn't move off the sofa. So we were live on air and I was like, there's literally nothing I can do about this.
What is going on under there?
Yeah. And I kind of waddled off the set at the end and then walked into the makeup room and just breathed a sigh of relief. And Patrick just screamed because obviously there was blood on me and he was like, what's happened to you? And I'm like, that's a period. And he was like, oh my God, you look like you've been stabbed.
Yeah. And that's like normal, not normal.
Yeah.
But common.
Yes.
Interesting you say that about Patrick, though, because Naga talked to her makeup artist too, and I think it was bloke.
Oh yeah, it might have been Patrick actually.
Maybe it was him.
Yeah, he did work on Breakfast for a while. So I mean, he's an makeup artist. If you ever want to find out what's going on, talk to the makeup artist.
So did you go? You must have gone almost straight from having a baby to perimenopause then.
Well, yeah. So she's 5. It's only been really in the last 6 to 8 months, I think, maybe slightly longer, because it's hard, isn't it? You don't really think about it every month because you just get through it and you're like, oh, that's another month I got through. And then it's only when you start to go, hang on a minute, my periods are a lot heavier. Like, what's that all about? And how is it that I suddenly, I'm 43 and I feel like I can't control them in a way I used to be able to, in terms of pain and the flooding and everything else. And it was only just from hearing, I didn't even know, I'd started to hear, obviously I knew the menopause, but only recently started to hear people talk about that and have been dreading that. And then didn't really understand the perimenopause until only about 2 years ago. Someone said it to me and I was like, I don't even know what that is. It sounded made up, to be honest, didn't it? It's like, when the doctors can't think what it might be, so they'll just say, it's perimenopause. I know now, like a lot of people have said, it's a bit early to get it. But I've got loads of friends, who are all feel like they're going through it, and we're all having the same conversations. We're all like early 40s. We're all talking about anxiety. We're all talking about like the heavier periods, mood swings. Like it's really interesting. It was my birthday a couple of weeks ago, and a few of my friends around the house with the kids were all playing, and literally all the women were just talking about what their symptoms were at the moment. And yet we've all got kids who are similar ages, like between 3 and 8. And everyone was saying, I think it's this. Have you had a test? What test have you done? Have you tried this? Have you listened to this person on Instagram? And it's reassuring, because it's like that collective. If you feel like everyone's going through it, then that makes you feel a bit better, doesn't it?
Even not so isolating.
Yeah. But it's, again, it's like a whole new learning curve, because everyone's discussing, well, what's the doctor said to you? I've been offered antidepressants. Have you? Why have they offered antidepressants? I've been offered HR.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. And that lack of, and I appreciate it's very individual for everyone, but it feels like the difference in the advice people are getting is really extreme too. And that's been, because then you're like, well, where is, how do you know?
Yeah, well, that's the trouble, isn't it? And the antidepressants thing is really, really common.
It feels like that's how everyone's told. I mean, I have literally no medical knowledge, experience or anything, but it feels like a lot of my friends are being told that's where you should start. And then we'll look at HRT and you're like, is that? I don't know. I don't know anything on this, but.
Yeah, no, it seems like an odd place to start to me. Apart from that, how are you feeling about getting older? Because you've been doing The Rest Is Money for a year now. You've got your book coming out.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm definitely an optimist. I'm someone who's not, I've always been very aware of how fickle the industry is and how you can, be flavour of the month and have every TV show going for a year and then literally suddenly no one's replying to your emails. So I've always prepared for that financially. I've been part of the reason I'm a business journalist. I've been very, I guess, savvy with my money, so that when the day came when I didn't necessarily have as much TV work, I'd be fine and then could just think about what else. Actually, fortunately, I've still been really, really busy, but in a completely different way to what I've been used to. So I've always been really busy with telly, but now definitely podcasts, us doing one now, they're so much bigger than people probably think in the media world now. They are like a really growing sector in the media. They're like way more flexible in terms of, I'm doing this one now sat at home up in Newcastle. I don't have to be in a studio in London, which is often the case when you're doing telly and things. And so there's that, the writing. I am absolutely loving the writing.
It wasn't lonely. I thought you might find it lonely.
Yeah, but then your characters, you're hanging out with your characters. So I didn't think I would be able to write a book. Everyone always said everyone's got a book in them. And I was like, I haven't. I'm just putting it out there now. I haven't got a book in me. I'm not saying I haven't got ideas for a book, but I don't think I could physically write one. I don't think I could A, cope with the solitude. B, I don't think my writing's good enough. I think that is the one thing that I found intimidating is I know I can story tell in a broadcast sense, but I have always been too scared to write. Like I remember at university being totally humiliated by a lecturer who was like, how did you pass your exams? Your English is terrible. And then I read that book, Eat, Shoots and Leaves, and like taught myself, like I was like, I'm not going to get these things wrong anymore. And so I've never had the confidence to write. But what I love about writing the book was I'd started with the idea. I read loads. I read like literally. As soon as we connected, I was trying to read which books you had on your shelf behind you to see.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Loads.
I was like, yeah, you've got loads. Yeah. So I just kept coming up with these ideas for stories all the time. And I just kept thinking, I'd love to make a TV show of these or whatever. But because I can't write. And then I was just reading more and more books. And then I heard Harlan Coben speak and he was talking about like the what ifs. That's how he starts his scenarios. Like, what if you're in a room and suddenly you see someone you thought was dead? And so I used to do that all the time.
Stephen King says the same thing, I think.
Yes. And so exactly. So the absolute kings of crime. And I used to do that all the time when I was out and about, just on broadcasts. I used to be like, what if this broadcast got hijacked? What would we do? And actually everyone's responses were really interesting because they were very different depending on what was going on in their lives. So I used to just write them down. And I just used to not for anything. I just used to write little notes and stuff like that. And then when I had my little girl, it was when COVID happened. And my friend Anne Cleves, the brilliant Vera Shetland creator.
Her.
Nicest
love her,
woman
Vera.
ever.
Go Vera.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's my neighbour, you see. And
yeah,
so,
you're on the next bay along, aren't you?
Yes. And she's a really good friend. And she was saying to me, you should write your book. Go on, tell me your idea. And I was telling her, you should totally write it. And I was like, and I can't, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, no, go on. Just have a go in lockdown, not for anyone else, just for you. And so I did. And then she read it. And like Anne is one of the nicest people on the planet, but she also doesn't suffer fools. So she would like, she's really, really honest and fair. And
yeah,
so
you'd know if she thought you were a knob, wouldn't you?
Yes, totally. And she always gets the knobs right, Even if you think they're nice, she'll be like, nah, they're a knob. She's done that with an ex of mine. Anyway, nah, she's not right for you. Turns out she was right. She read it. I'd written about 10,000 words and I loved it because while everyone else was making banana loaves in lockdown, I was just like creating these characters. And I'd always heard her talk about Vera just walking into a room and that's where she came from. And then I started thinking, that's where my character Harriet's come from. She's just walked in, but I really like her. And like, oh, what, and it was really weird because I was thinking it's coming from my head. But so anyway, she kind of gave me the confidence and then put me in touch with, and again, I knew everyone in the industry. I knew her publisher and I knew all her team because I'd done loads of events with them and I interviewed down a lot about her book.
Because you're a real crime nerd, aren't you?
Yes, totally.
Crime fiction nerd, yeah.
Yeah. Not committing crime. Let's just throw that
reading
in there.
it.
So that's where it came from. And then I really enjoyed it. The solitude, I realised it was actually great for my brain. I'm always on the go because, along with the media stuff, I've got businesses and, I've got a kid, a partner, I've got a million things going on. And I just thought, I just liked the sitting there and the hours passing and as I was writing stuff. And also I'm nosy. So like listening into conversations and thinking, oh yeah, that's a good, how would they say that? And yeah. And as we've discussed, there's also a lot of, I guess, and Val McDermid said this, sorry to name drop all the heroes of crime.
Yeah, no, go for it.
Val's a mate as well. And she'd said to me, everyone's first book is also normally quite a bit of autobiography. And she's right. I've been able to like tell some of the stories of my career in a fictional way. So no one sues me. Like it's a bit of history of, me as well as this dark psychological drama.
One of the things that I scribbled down that I thought came through in the book, and I wondered if it was something that you felt, was the kind of issue of relatability. Do you feel that pressure now? Because you're in no way normal, are you now?
No, and exactly. I'm not.
You're not one of them anymore, Steph.
No, I know. I'm not one of my mates, I guess, but I'm still I've still got the same mates I had when I was 10. So like my best mates are the Geordie girls who live up the road, who are the ones I talk to about perimenopause. And I live in the Northeast and, my little girl goes to a state school, blah, blah, blah. And I know, but my life is, I'm not normal for being gay as well in a way too. So, there aren't that many gay parents here either. But I probably never was normal either, because I was also the kid who had the weird dad artist, and I was also the one who did Irish dancing before it became trendy because Riverdance wasn't out. And I was also like the school squat, but tried to be I don't know. So maybe in a way, even though I look and sound normal, I've never been normal. I don't know what is normal.
Exactly. It feels like it's almost ever so, in a weird way, it's your comfort zone. It's that kind of the normal facade.
Yeah.
If you like, that kind of, but also like being the girl engineer and, like you say, being gay in telly and gay and northern and then being, because lots of people I know, gay couples who've got kids, they move to places where there are more of them, not less of them.
Yeah. I think that's because, again, I don't feel like that defines me. And that's not the most interesting thing about me, is being like a 2-mum family. Weirdly, they've been, don't get me wrong, I have had those conversations with my partner going, how are we, I'm just trying to think how to phrase it. Yeah, I've had those conversations with my partner where we've been like, right, we've got to try and make our daughter's life as normal as we can, even though that's going to be really hard because my job's not normal. And, we're gay parents in a school where there aren't really many. Kids, for a start, don't really care. We've just noticed a funny thing happen where quite a few of our mates' kids have gone, I want 2 mummies. Can I swap daddy for a mummy? And can I have 2 mummies? And so there's funny things like that happen. And then also, we're just really like open about stuff. We're not trying to make a big deal out of anything. And I know there'll be times when it's harder because she's going to be a bit different because her mum's on the telly and she's got 2 mums or whatever. But then I think about the kids who've got like only one parent because something's happened to the parent, and then they'll probably feel different, and then there'll be ones. So I don't know. I just think it doesn't worry me as much as maybe I thought it might do before we had her. Yeah. It was the other day we did have a conversation about fame. So she said to me, are you famous? And I was like, well, to some people I am. And she's like, right, so what does it mean then? And I said, it just means that some people know who I am, but I don't know who they are. And she was like, right, so I know who you are and you know who I am, so you are not famous to me. And I said, yes. Correct. And so she was like, I know. And I was like, pleased with myself for coming up with that. And so like, then when we've been out and about and people have stopped me, she's gone, do you know them? And I'm like, no. And she'll go, right, so you're famous to them. And I'm like, yeah, kind of, yeah. And she's like, why didn't they ask about me? And it's like,
oh, I love kids.
I know, she's great. She doesn't care. I remember reading a brilliant interview with Jennifer Saunders where she said her kids stood in the kitchen one day and they were like whispering amongst themselves. And then they just went, Mum, is it true? Are you Jennifer Saunders? And I was like, that's really funny. Yeah.
I should ask you the questions that I always ask at the end. What's your emotional age?
Oh, gosh, my emotional age is probably, it depends where I am in my period. So if it's a week before I am 12, 13, I'd like to think the rest of the time I think I've stayed at 30s. So I'm into my 40s and I think aging is a privilege. So I'm not someone who's like, doesn't want to get old. I really do. I actually do want to get old. But I'd say I've maintained my state of mind for my 30s unless I'm due on.
So it'd be interesting to see what happens when you're no longer due on. Give us a book recommendation.
Oh, okay. So so many good books. My favourite author is Lisa Joel, but there's one that so any of hers are amazing. But one
Have you read the new one?
I have.
So good, isn't it?
Oh man, she does the creepiest characters, and
he is the creepiest.
He is so creepy. Don't let him in. But the one that is out that I think is great is by Ellery Lloyd. So this is a husband and wife team who write together, and it's called The Final Act of Juliet Willoughby.
Oh, I haven't read that.
Have you read it? Really good.
No, I haven't.
It's about, you'll love it, I think, because it's about a female artist from history. So like, I can't remember what year it was, like early 1900s or something. And then she goes missing, and a really famous piece of art that she had painted goes missing. But then, and so fast forward 100 and odd years, and they're trying to unravel this mystery of what happened. And it's just all about, female power and corruption and all that. And it's really smart. Really
Sounds
good.
up my alley.
It's good.
What advice would you give younger women?
Oh, my absolute key bit of advice is just to not change who you are in that trying to fit in way. And I know that's a cliche, but authenticity is the key, because trying to be someone you're not is A, really hard, and B, it's just not fun. So like, you will find your place and you won't have to change to be in that place. And that's the key. I say it to like young, particularly women all the time, is don't change, because it's rubbish.
Sure. And it's so true. I remember I used to try, when I was interviewing people, I used to try and be all like proper and intelligent and quite formal. And then I remember once talking to Nigella Lawson, name drop, and her saying to me, just be yourself. And then it became so easy.
But it takes a bit to be yourself though, doesn't it? Because exactly the same as you, when I started at the BBC, when I first went on telly, I felt like I had to be a BBC reporter. And I didn't
stand up straighter and everything.
And I didn't change my voice or anything, but I felt like I was not. And I remember my boss saying to me, "You're you before you're a BBC reporter. You're Steph, who is a BBC reporter. So just remember the Steph bit." And I was like, "Oh." And then I realised, yeah, you're right. If you be yourself, it's more fun, and then people can see you're authentic as well, because they're like, "Oh, she's a good laugh," or whatever. You give off the right vibes.
Who's your old bird role model?
I think it's the kind of the women who've gone before who are like, like kind of Victoria Wood, Dawn French, Jennifer Saunders. I feel bad calling them old birds. But yeah. So it is, it's like French and Saunders for me. Like, I just think they paved the way for women being funny and just, I've literally always been madly in love with them and still am. And I'm friends with Dawn now, so I regularly tell her I love her and I'll leave my partner for her. So far, she hasn't taken me up on that offer, but she did send me a lemon tree for my birthday.
What's your superpower?
My superpower is, I don't know what my superpower is. I definitely am not particularly good at any one thing. I think my superpower is being average at quite a lot of things. That's my superpower. So on command, I can dance if you needed me to. And I can do, or maybe I could do a complicated sum. I'm not brilliant at any particular thing, but yeah, being average at a few different things.
And last one, how many fucks do you give?
So definitely fewer, but I'm on the 1 or 2 fucks out of 10 now. And I'm hoping by the time I reach my 50s, it'll be 0. But I've still got a couple of fucks that I give.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy The Shift and would like to show your appreciation, why not buy me a coffee? Go to www.buymeacoffee.com/The Shift with Sam Baker. You can hear a new episode of The Shift every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, please do rate, review, follow, tell your friends, because it really does help other people find us. And if you'd like to know more about my own experience of shifting, my book, The Shift, How I Lost and Found Myself After 40, and you can too, is out now in paperback.